Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Michael.
Morning, Michael.
Welcome to the Friday, May 11th edition of the OHMA conference. Glad that you're all here. Another reminder, to get your card filled in for the vendors out here for the drawing, for the OHMA drawing. Also, I want to give a big thank you here this morning for all of the OHMA sponsors. That's Neltec, Premier Technologies, Interalia, MOH Technologies and Barracks, ProDigital, McKinsey, and the production department. Thank you for your supports. Also want to let you know, speaking of, we have speaking here this afternoon, Interalia folks, right before our 11 o'clock session, they're going to be doing a drawing for an iPad, a 32 gig iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
But in order to do that, you must be present to win. Okay, number one, and you need to go by their booth and get set up for that. So check in with the Interalia guys for that. Without further ado, we've put many years of discussion and effort into doing some research. So it's a pleasure here to welcome Arabella Pollock from Greystoke Insights and talk about what people really think about on-hold messaging. We're excited. Good morning, everybody.
Morning,
Michael.
Morning, Michael.
Welcome to the Friday, May 11th edition of the OHMA conference. Glad that you're all here. Another reminder, to get your card filled in for the vendors out here for the drawing, for the OHMA drawing. Also, I want to give a big thank you here this morning for all of the OHMA sponsors. That's Neltec, Premier Technologies, Interalia, MOH Technologies and Barracks, ProDigital, McKinsey, and the production department. Thank you for your supports. Also want to let you know, speaking of, we have speaking here this afternoon, Interalia folks, right before our 11 o'clock session, they're going to be doing a drawing for an iPad, a 32 gig iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
But in order to do that, you must be present to win. Okay, number one, and you need to go by their booth and get set up for that. So check in with the Interalia guys for that. Without further ado, we've put many years of discussion and effort into doing some research. So it's a pleasure here to welcome Arabella Pollock from Greystoke Insights and talk about what people really think about on-hold messaging. We're excited to hear about that.
Well, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, we get like a flawless medium light.
I guess this is like a theater to try and encourage everybody to come in. Is that what's going on?
I'm ready.
So, hi everybody. Really nice to see so many of you here. I know a lot of you were out last night enjoying yourselves in the desert, so I'm glad you managed to navigate your way back. And you don't have too nervous, so that's a good start for the day. Can we do it for the bus? Can we do it on the bus?
Feedback.
Oh, okay. Great. Some of you may find as the presentation goes on, you may want to move a little bit closer so that you can see, but if not, don't worry. We'll be able to send this out afterwards so that you can all get copies and see the details of the presentation. There's going to be a lot of numbers in here, but what's going to be more important is really what the numbers mean, and that's what I'm going to be trying to talk about. You'll have to excuse me hobbling around. I had ankle surgery, so I'm not quite as mobile as I'd like to be. But I'm really excited to share these results with you. It's been a really, really interesting study. So this is basically what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to start off by giving you a little bit of background just on how the research worked, some of the nuts and bolts behind it. And then we're going to go through the actual findings of a number of areas. I'm going to wrap up with giving you some recommendations that come directly from the research. Things that your customers said that you might be able to help them with and do better. And then right at the end, we're going to be announcing who won our incentives. So hang on for that. So I think a lot of you know how this all worked. Basically, we reached out to you, to the members of OHMA and to AMA Europe. And we asked you to send out the survey to your customers so that we can see what your customers thought and hear from them. It was a completely anonymous survey, so the only person who had access to the actual responses was myself. So no need for anybody to worry about bringing confidentiality confidentiality or anonymity. In order to get people to participate, we did have some incentives, both for your customers themselves to get them to participate, and then also for a member, whoever's customer won the iPod 3, and we'll get to that at the end, you yourself also win an iPod 3. So that was to motivate all of you guys to participate too. And we had a pretty good response. We sent it out to 60 members, but we found about 27 of you actually got your customers to participate. We would like to have seen that higher, but I also acknowledge it fell around Easter, it fell around Passover. We were basically sort of time constrained because we wanted to have the results ready to take you through here today. So I know some of you wish there had been more time, and I'm sorry we weren't able to make that happen. But in the end, we actually got responses from over 1,500 clients. So that's really good, and it meant that we were able to do quite some in-depth analysis of what people actually think. Something just to remember, it would be lovely if we could say, oh great, these results mean that we can say all on-hold messaging users think this. We can't. Obviously, it just went out to people who are part of On-Hold Messaging Association, and from what I understand, you guys are a creme de la creme. So we've got some kind of bias coming in there in terms of your customers. And the other thing is it depends on who actually responds to the survey. So it's certainly very, very useful information, and I think we'll give you some good data points and some good talking points, but we can't unfortunately use it to draw conclusions about the whole population of on-hold messaging users. If you're interested, and if you were one of the members whose customers participated in this, I can work with you to actually prepare an individual report so that you can see exactly what your customers said and did. So you won't get individual names and details, but you will get all the information we're going to show you today broken down for your specific customers. So just let me know if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so what did we find out? Sure. Yeah, I can send it to you later. I have business cards if you want to come up to me afterwards. Sorry, no problem. And if you have questions as we're going through, please feel free to ask. Let's make this kind of interactive. So the first thing I want to say is we got really, really good positive feedback from this. And I was a little surprised because when you do user satisfaction research like this, a lot of the time people see this as an opportunity to bitch and gripe and moan and talk about everything they don't like. So to actually find that people given this opportunity were praising their on-hold messaging team and talking about all the things they did like was very, very surprising. And I think that's a credit to all of you here today. But essentially, everyone who's using OHM is very, very satisfied with it. And there's a number of areas. We're going to go into this all in more detail, but they really appreciate the service they get from you. They appreciate the quality of the product they're using. And they appreciate the fact that it helps give them a very professional image, ultimately to their own customers. They see it actually provides clear marketing benefits that they can talk to, especially versus other types of phone service. So there were some comments about the, press brief or whatever, the automated systems. There were comments about on-hold messaging versus music. And this on-hold messaging is really seen to provide a difference against this. It's something that actually provides dollars to the business as well. And in a little while, I'll show you some estimates I put together on how much money it can help actually drive for your customers for not that much of an outlay. There were some areas of improvement suggested. These were specific suggestions that came up. A lot of questions around how to make it easier to update the messages. I think people would like to be able to change their message more frequently, but they just need a little bit more help. I'll talk about that later on as well. Additional options. People want to have more choices. So the more you can help them with that. For example, if somebody is working with a lot of Spanish-speaking customers, if you can provide Spanish voices, or I think one of the comments was like, at least somebody who can pronounce Spanish names properly. There's a little thing that can go a long way towards helping your customers be satisfied. The other thing they're looking for is guidance from you. They really want you to to be a partner. They want you to help them work on how to grow their business using on-call messaging. And they are looking to you and to the association to help them do that. So if we look at client satisfaction, I mean, this is really extraordinary. We asked people how likely they would be to recommend on-call messaging to others. And 85% of them said they would be somewhat or very likely. This is really extremely high. So whatever you are doing for your customers right now, you're doing it really well. And hopefully they are actually going out there and spreading the word for you, because they are very, very happy with what you're doing. They also think it's a useful marketing tool that adds value. And very few of them decided it was a necessary evil. You're always going to have some people who think that. But overwhelmingly, they see the value in it for their marketing. And because of that, and I don't know if you see this in your own businesses, but it seems that there's a very strong rate of client retention. We found that about half of people who took the survey have been using on-call messaging for at least 5 years. So that does suggest, once you go through the effort of bringing in a new customer, giving them the great service and product quality that you give them, they're likely to stay on board for a long, long time. So that's a very, very powerful thing for a business to have. Now, in this question, we asked them about different types of marketing and how effective on-call messaging is compared to them. So basically, anything tending towards the green side, they said on-hold messaging is more effective, and tending towards the red side, they said is less effective. So most of these things kind of clump around the middle, but what you will see is if you look at traditional advertising like Yellow Pages, on-hold messaging is regarded as more effective than that as a marketing tool. It's also regarded as more effective than traditional out-of-home messaging and radio, where it's probably more on a par with things like internet and TV, which could be more interactive. But it shows that there is a real opportunity to use on-hold messaging as part of the marketing mix, and in some cases replace what may be more expensive and less effective ways of reaching your customers.
Can you show us what on-hold marketing is on that?
We didn't actually ask that. What we asked was a comparison.
Oh,
So is it more effective or less effective? So here they're saying on-hold messaging is more effective than Yellow Pages. And it's about the same as TV and internet. Make sense?
So yellow is where on-hold marketing would be then, basically.
Sorry?
The yellow triangle is about where on-hold marketing should be then?
Yellow means it's equal to those other ones. Okay?
So everything to the right they think is better than on-hold marketing?
No.
Everything to the left.
Other way around. Everything to the right is saying on-hold marketing, on-hold messaging
Marketing
is
is better
better.
than everything on the right.
And everything to the left, which really isn't very much, is saying on-hold messaging is worse. Make sense? Good. It's really good to clarify if you have any questions about this. Yeah. So, and this is good for me, because what I can do is make this clearer so that when we send it out, it's easier to understand. Yes. Yes. I mean, this is kind of a scale. It's hard to say like X% or anything just because of how we ask the question, but we can say that people viewed it as more effective than Yellow Pages. So,
On their 1 to 5 scale question,
right.
what was the average number? 3, 3.5?
Well, if the yellow triangle is 2.5 on a 1 to 5, so, and I can actually get you the actual numbers, but we're about 3.
Okay, that was my question. Yeah. Where did we fall on that scale? About a 3.
Compared to Yellow Pages, yes, absolutely, yes.
But is it the point that we're equally or more effective than things that are considerably more expensive?
Exactly. Yeah. And ultimately, it needs to be just one part of the marketing mix. You can't just say, take all the money that you're spending on these other areas and put it into on-call messaging. Because each of these plays a different role.
Yes, we can.
You can. You can try that one. But many of these play a different role. I mean, I would say some, like Yellow Pages, are probably really going out with the dinosaurs, and maybe what you're offering would be a much better use of money. But yes, fundamentally you can say on-hold messaging is equally effective, is perceived as being equally or more effective than these other forms of marketing. Yeah?
So TV is equal to on-home?
Yes.
TV's equal, it's higher.
Yes, exactly. Slightly higher. Yeah. Not hugely higher, but slightly higher.
What does it mean out of home?
Out of home, so that's like billboards, bus stops, things like that. Sign, yeah.
Anything that you don't see in your home.
Exactly. Yeah. Any other questions about this slide? That's a really great suggestion. Yeah, good. This kind of feedback is really helpful, so when we have the final report, I want to make sure it's as clear to all of you as it is. Yeah. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Almost flip it so that works.
Yeah. We'll work on that and how we make that a little bit better. I mean, the challenge is because we didn't ask like people to place on-hold messaging in a range. It was all asked as comparisons. So we'll find a way to make this slide clear. But yeah, the fundamental takeaway is that people think on-hold messaging is just as effective as everything else they're doing, and in some cases more effective.
Not just people, but half of the people in this survey have been using on-hold marketing 5 years or longer.
Right.
Those people who have been using it for at least 5 years, most of those say this.
Yeah.
I think that's a more powerful.
Absolutely, and I did look at those as a subgroup, and yeah, certainly they feel the same way. So, which is why they keep on using it. Okay, you may find this one confusing as well then. So, don't worry, I only have 2 slides that look like this. So this one, we asked them how effective it was at doing different things for their business. So they were saying that the most effective use they see for using on-hold messaging is building image and professionalism, followed by providing value to customers who are actually on hold. And again, nothing is regarded, at least in the things we asked about, as being low effectiveness. But one area which was kind of right in the middle was this area of increasing sales. So this might be something that you can work with your customers on and help them to actually use on-hold messaging to drive sales, as well as just to be something to provide entertainment or keep people on the go. Any questions about this one? That one's easier. Okay, great. This makes more sense. So it's the previous one. I just need to work on a little. Okay, we got some great feedback from participants. Again, a lot of the time when I do research and we ask people for comments, people just ignore that opportunity. We've got great comments that you'll see throughout this report. And these are some of the benefits that people talked about why they use on-hold messaging and things they like.
Do you know who they were? Do you know if these are the business owners, the marketing people, the telecommunications people?
Well, you sent it to me. You sent it out. We sent it to me. Yeah, so.
We know if they were marketing decision makers or not, but beyond that, we don't know. So it's a good question.
Some people sent the script contact, some people sent the business owner.
But I'm sure there's no surprises on here for you, but I think it's always nice to hear what people think in their own words, and particularly given this is completely unsolicited. It was like, whatever benefits does it give? And they were like, oh, let me tell you, this is why we like it. And I think, this last one, not having an on-hold message is the equivalent of not having a company website. This company sees this as something you can go without if you are going to be a professional business. This is something that is part of your image, part of your brand equity, and it's just foolish to ignore it. As I was mentioning, you do need to think about on-hold messaging as a part of your marketing mix if you're a customer. So clearly, you want to go in and say to everybody, well, you need to take all your money and do it to on-hold messaging. You can, that's absolutely fine. But this may actually be an opportunity for you to talk to potential new clients and say, this does fit in as a key part of the whole. On-hold messaging is never going to be something that is going to bring new clients into your business, but once you have them on hold, it's one of the during time that is essentially dead time when you have a captive audience, it's a very, very powerful tool that you have in your hands. Now, how many of you are familiar with seeing a graphic like this with a bunch of words? Yeah. This is something called a wordle. And what you do is you take everyone's comments, and basically, the more often a word comes up, the bigger it appears on the screen. So it's a really simple, effective way of seeing what people are saying without having to read through hundreds and hundreds of specific quotes. And so if you look here, we ask people why they recommend on-hold messaging to others. And you can see the words very easily that pop out. You can see professional, service, customers, great, good. So these are the words that people are using time and time again to explain why they are recommending on-hold messaging. And it does come down to both the product and the service that you guys are offering. So the service is viewed as very, very important, and we hear this time and time again in the responses that we got. Both the individual people that they're working with and the level of the service really makes a difference. The quality of what you're offering too is regarded as very important. And part of that, we have several references to the ease of using your products. That's all regarded as part of the product policy. So a lot of satisfaction around these areas. Some other reasons that people gave. There are people who are really using it to get out certain messages, whether that's advertising special promotions, special events, and they see that as incredibly valuable to their business. The fact it's a non-pressure sales pitch. The fact you can provide information on the company, again, in a very low-key way that's not really hammering it down the customer's throats. And I love this quote at the bottom, where they actually said they had people being asked to put it back on hold so they could finish listening to the message. I mean, what more could you want than to have a messaging that's so powerful that people actually would rather listen to it than talk to the representative and do whatever they're called to do? So the flip side is, in general, most customers love the service. They feel it's a real advantage to their working with you guys. Where it goes bad, though, is when bad service occurs. And these were very, very few people, I have to emphasize. But there were a few people who had had some bad experiences. And because of that, they said they would never recommend on-hold messaging to anyone else. And some of them were even saying, you know, we're not likely to continue with this because of it. And I think all it takes, unfortunately, is one bad experience to turn somebody off. So that's a lot of pressure on you guys, because I'm sure a lot of the time, being in any service business, the service issues that may be perceived are not actually service issues created by you. It's more in the customer's head. But whatever you can do to keep the customers happy and to provide them with good service, it's definitely recognized and rewarded in terms of their loyalty to you. So the next thing we looked at is, why do people get on-hold messaging in the first place? And this can be useful for you to understand as you go out looking for new customers. Because why did your current customers decide to actually buy into this? So there's a number of reasons. I mean, all the ones you might expect. But the key reasons were around acknowledging the opportunity to build image and professionalism, and also to use on-hold messaging as a sales promotion tool. And this is actually reflected as well in how they're using it today. So the main reason in which we're using it is providing information on their products and services to customers who are on hold, and giving their callers the right impression. So brand building and information sharing. Now, while several of them said they wanted to use it when they first got it to set up promotions, to promote different sales opportunities, not so many are doing it. Only about a quarter are actually advertising specials right now. So again, this may be an opportunity for you to work with your customers to help them understand how to use on-hold messaging better to actually do some specific sales promotion type work. because they're interested in it when they first get it, and then they don't seem to be actually using that aspect of it. Similarly, promoting date-specific events. So there's definitely opportunity there. We also got a little bit of bashing for our colleagues next door in the music industry. So people are choosing on-hold messaging because they see it does provide more value in general than music. Part of that is because some of these people weren't actually using professional music services. There were a lot of comments from people who have been using the radio or trying to find some other free way to play music to their customers. And some of them were finding out that that was then illegal. And so then they were like, okay, now what do we do? But in general, it was perceived that actually providing messaging versus just music was a way to really provide enhanced value, both to the listener and to the company by actually making use of that time when they're on hold. We did have one comment though, music can play a role, and in this particular client's case, it was a company that has speakers in 2 different languages. So for them to use on-hold messaging, I have no idea, you guys are the experts, but maybe there is a way to separate people by the language they speak and give them messages in different languages. But for them, they felt it was more beneficial to just have music, so they didn't risk offending anybody who spoke one or the other language. So the next area we looked at is how we actually measure the impact of on-hold messaging. And obviously this is the holy grail, because the more you can show that, wow, we're creating real value by using this, the more easy it is to both bring in new customers and show them the value of what you're doing. So to start with, we looked at the average sale of the different businesses who responded, so that we could start using this to estimate how much money on-hold messaging actually generates. And this is just the people who responded. It's not necessarily a good representation of all your clients. But we did see that half of the people who responded had average sales of $500 or more. And in fact, a good number had average sales of over $2,500. So it's the average individual sale that they were making. So there's some real significance to making a sale for your customers. They're also getting a lot of calls. We asked them how many calls they thought they got in an actual day. Again, this is perception. They're not actually sitting there logging all their calls. It'd be really nice if they were. But there's a lot coming in. And again, about half of everybody who replied said they got more than 75 calls a day. And in fact, about 1 in 8 said they get more than 200 calls a day. So that's a lot of people who are phoning and then having the opportunity to be put on hold. So clearly the next question was, okay, you're getting all these calls a day, but how many of them are actually being put on hold? And what we found is it's a little bit more than half callers get put on hold at some point during their experience with your customers. So then the next question is, how long are you put on hold for? And where is this going? And on average, most calls are put on hold for somewhere between about 15 seconds and a minute. So it's interesting because this is certainly enough time that you can really get some significant messaging across about your organization. But it's not so long that the customers who are on hold are going to get really fed up and hang up.
So this is perceived.
Yes, this is all perceived. What would be really nice would be to be able to get some real data of what's actually going on. But this is their perception of how many people are on hold for.
And likewise, the perception of how many people they put on hold.
Exactly. Yeah, it would be really, really great to get some hard and accurate numbers around this. Yeah.
There's nothing available that measures on hold time.
Not unless you guys have access to it yourselves. No.
It's one of those, it has to be a perceived number, that's all we're ever going to get.
Call center queue, yes, but not on hold.
Right. It would be great if somebody could develop that technology. That would be incredibly valuable. Yeah?
But with 1,500 respondents, and that's a good average to give you an idea of something perception. They're pretty, it's compact.
Exactly. I mean, you're not just asking 50 people here, you're asking a huge number of people. And it really is concentrating in a certain area. It may be that there's a tendency to under-perceive. Perhaps people are on hold for longer, and your customers just aren't realizing that. But in general, I think even as far as perceptions go, I think this is probably a pretty good indicator.
Likewise, I imagine there might be a perception that they over-perceive the number of calls.
I'm sure. Yeah, because they're like, oh my God, we're so busy, the phones never stop ringing.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure. This one?
Yes.
The number of calls? Yeah. So, and you can see, I mean, there's even a number of people who say that every single call they're getting is being put on hold. Yeah. Is this you, really? Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah.
Can you speak up?
It's good to see that companies aren't in denial, meaning they don't say they don't have control. This is perception-based. That's true.
Yeah, but remember, these are customers who already got past that denial.
Let's get the microphone going.
Just
Okay.
it's the other people that
Right, hold on a second.
don't
Give
know.
them the mic, Newman. Newman.
Mike,
You have a survey.
I was just saying from observation, it's interesting that they're not in denial. I think it's very interesting figures that people talking about, people hold between 16 seconds to 60 seconds. That's a fair chunk of time.
Did you all hear that? Should I repeat it?
I didn't hear it.
Okay. So what's your Simon? What Simon was saying is he found it very interesting to see this page and the page before, because in his experience, a lot of customers are in denial, and they don't think they're putting people on hold. But actually, what this data shows, even in perceptions, is there is some reality out there that people are acknowledging, they are using their on-hold messaging, and that clients are actually being put on hold for some period of time. Did I get that right? Excellent. Yeah.
Well, there is the consideration, though, that these particular people are people who have already seen the value of on-hold marketing and have kept it for most of them at least 5 years.
That is
Right?
certainly true. Yeah, so there's some bias in terms of these are people who have been using it and been using it well. Yeah.
So it would be interesting to contrast the perception of how many people are placed on hold from a population that actually doesn't have anything on hold, for example.
Yeah, I think what Simon was referring to is usually people who haven't used the service.
The people that are in denial are the people we're trying to sell.
Prospects.
Yeah, it'd be really, really interesting to compare that. Yeah, as you say, to look at people who have on-hold systems without any kind of messaging, and yeah, see their perceptions versus people
We
who
could send that survey out to our prospects who didn't buy.
If you think they'd be...
You get more than
interested?
1,500 responses, I'll bet.
I mean, in all honesty...
I can give you 1,500.
If you think your prospects might be open to giving that kind of feedback, it would be very interesting to compare their perceptions to the perceptions of people who are using on-hold messaging currently.
Actually, for prospects, that'd be quite good as a part of the educational process. I think that if they say, no, we don't want it because we don't put people on hold, then maybe if you could ask them, hi, by the way, can you fill in this form as part of an industry survey we're carrying out?
Yeah.
And that may actually get them to look at it properly. And they've got to put their name to it. It may mean they go and reevaluate what they thought was the case. May not be the case.
Well, and what would be nice is then if you could do maybe a case study where you have somebody who thought they weren't using it as a prospect, and then once they come on board and are using on-call messaging, to see how their perceptions change. But that would be very powerful, I think.
I think another part of the survey of prospects is we could find out where the disconnect is between what we perceive the value of it versus why they didn't see it, why didn't they buy. That would be an incredibly valuable piece of information, I think, to all of us.
Is anybody here right now doing that kind of follow-up with their prospects who don't wind up buying? Because I agree, I think it's a great idea.
I always ask that question.
And what kind of responses do you get?
That's a great question. I guess I need to sell more, get more rejections to remember what they said. But honestly, I think mostly it's, a lot of times I don't get an answer. I get it because I do such a thorough job. They don't usually want to tell me. It's usually, I think it's their brother-in-law doesn't like it, or somebody there doesn't like it, or, you know, they really don't like it, but they don't have the courage to tell me, I just don't like it. But some guys, I just don't see the value. I mean, I've gone to banks, and I have gone in and taken a document and said, let's say this only, in the whole year, you gave one additional mortgage customer.
Right.
One additional mortgage customer. The whole year. Entire year. And I look at the percentage, like how much interest they would gain if they didn't charge any fees for writing the mortgage. They've looked at it, they've agreed with the numbers, it's a value that's, it's incomprehensible. I mean, it's like 1/10 of 1% is what it would cost them if they only got one. And they said, we've just decided to not do it. I just get the blank stare, and I'm like, well, maybe somebody can give me some idea of why that would be. It could be that, I mean, I want to say, is it my deodorant? Is it, my haircut? No, they didn't give the business to somebody else. No, it's a bank that I know, and for some reason or the other, and banks a lot of times, they don't tell you. By committee, yes.
Because they're lazy, they don't want extra work.
Yeah, they're lazy. Yeah, that could be that they're lazy. But a lot of times I just don't see the value, and a lot of people on the shorter sales cycles, the banks for me are a longer sales cycle. But we do a lot of wholesale supply companies, and they have a shorter sales cycle. I like them. It's like catching bluegills as opposed to catching, some sort of big sports fish. Of course, you get a bluegill, but you can eat one bluegill if you have enough of them, little fish. But the thing is, what they'll tell me a lot of times is, we just don't see the value. I mean, we don't put our people on hold long enough. Basically, that's I think it's like an emotional decision. They decide ahead of time. Like some people don't like salespeople.
Or fear of commitment.
Or don't like fear of commitment. I don't know. That's what I get. Certainly other people are asking, do you mind, Mr. Prospect, why?
I think it's always worth asking the question. Like you say, you may not get an honest answer. I mean, the other area to think about is, given you have so many satisfied customers, I don't know whether you may have another bank customer, for example, who might be willing to share their experience, and if your bank prospect would be willing to listen to them. But you might be able to make word of mouth really work for you in that case.
But wouldn't that, I don't know who you were talking to at the bank.
Yeah, well, it depends on which person
I mean, wouldn't that change from who we're talking to? You may talk to a bank 1 year, and then you go back the next year, and you have different contact. Because that person with the attitude is gone. And so therefore the attitude is going to be different. And I think what Simon jokingly says is probably true. Most of the people are lazy. I think most of the people probably they just don't want to invest the time into finding out why it might be a good idea. If you really look at the survey here, the average company has between 50 and 150 hours of hold time. And you look at them and you say, you got it. What are you going to do with it? It's there. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to spend it wisely?
And actually, that leads very nicely onto some summaries I did about, the amount of time I spent on hold. So, should I continue?
Yes.
Okay, great
Get sidetracked.
So, that was a very nice segue, thank you. Because if you take your typical online client, based on this perceived information. So let's say they get 100 calls a day, they're putting 57% of those on hold for about 30 seconds each. So that does average out as half an hour every single day of messaging opportunity. And that in itself may not sound like that much, but when you project that out over a year, that's 3 whole weeks of just, being able to talk to your customers in terms of business time. So that's a real opportunity that, like you said, if you're not using it for on-call messaging, what are you using it for? Why not use that time to actually create value for your customer? So I was quite amazed when I actually projected out those numbers and saw what that all added up to. So then the question is, well, can we start translating that to some real hard dollars? And again, using some of the survey data as an estimate, we can. So we asked people whether they had any kind of evidence that their on-home messaging has directly led to sales. 25% of them said they did. They actually believe that they could show that messaging has led to sales. And we're going to follow up with some of these people who said they were willing to share their information and see what we can actually conclude from that with some more specific numbers. There was a huge number, about half, who said they weren't sure. And then there were some who said they didn't think it had led to it. But if we just look at that 24% who said it had led to sales, and again, if you look at the average number of sales that were reported by these people as having resulted in the last year for directly from customers being placed on hold. And then if we say that the average sales 500, we get to about $90,000 a year. And that value is created purely through on-call messaging. Yeah?
Did the average sale come from the survey, or is that your number?
It's from the survey.
It
so
is.
It's reported.
Wow.
Yeah.
Winning.
Yeah.
I almost stopped you on that slide. Is that their average sale regardless of on hold, or is that because of on hold?
That is what they said their average individual sale was. So
without regard to on hold.
Exactly, exactly. We didn't define that more. The question was, is that their average sale resulting from on hold or regardless of on hold? It was their average individual sale in general. Yeah. Correct. Actually, that's a very, very good point. Yeah, the average sales. So this is an additional $90,000 in revenues. But yeah, then if you have some idea of your client's profit margin, you could obviously work back from that as the profit you're generating for them. But again, for something that's using dead time, this is pure incremental revenue that you're generating. But the wonderful thing about on-hold messaging is we can show it's actually creating some value in terms of money, but it's not just the value that comes from the dollars. There is a real perception, and I think we'd hear the same thing if we spoke to people being put on hold, that on-hold messaging is actually giving them a real sense of value.
Sorry, to back up to the last slide, are you able to, is there a robust enough sample that you could divide this by industry a little? Because there's certain industries, home health care, where someone on hold per se might not be someone you would sell a service to, whereas there are other businesses where they're obviously going to be actively trying to sell something if someone comes off hold.
I can look at it a little. I think by the time we start subdividing it by industry, it's going to get very small. I didn't think we only had 24% respondents.
Just because there's some businesses putting people on hold, and it's not even their intention to try to sell something to them.
Right.
That's not even their business to sell small ticket items. That people are just calling in for service or who knows why.
And I think the point is, even if you're not trying to drive sales, if you're just trying to give your people on hold a positive experience, it achieves that as well. But yeah, I mean, if we do any future surveys, the more respondents we get, the more we are able to slice and dice the data and look at different industries and things like that, which is why we were driving you all crazy with emails, asking you to participate, because the more the better in that respect. But yes, I mean, it does have a positive hold. It entertains people on hold. It provides them information. It provides them with a sense of value to their time. If they're going to be stuck on hold, at least this way they feel they've got something to listen to. They're not worried that they've been cut off. And if your customers can actually benefit by creating value, financial value out of that, all the better. But even if they don't, you're winding up with a more satisfied on hold customer. So let's look at some of the opportunities. I mentioned right up front the fact that many customers would like some more help with updating their on-home messages. And we did ask how frequently people are doing this. And it was actually really amazing because over a third of your customers say they're updating their message once a year or less frequently. So, I see a little head shaking around the room. Sorry?
We're not surprised.
Not surprised, okay. Yeah, and I hear this is something you're probably aware of, that it really is an opportunity, and I know you guys know this. There are some who are really using it very well and updating it many times a year. Now, I had to look at the people who are updating several times a year to kind of see what differences we could see in their attitudes and perceptions. And it's a little hard here because we can't say, well, their perceptions are better because they're updating it more often, or are they updating it more often because their perceptions are better and they run a bigger business? But it was interesting to see that the ones who are updating their message more often, they tend to be the ones who say they have more polls going on, and they tend to be ones who, when we talk about different ways of using on-call messaging, they talk about a much wider spectrum of usage. So they seem to be much more open to the potential of how to use the service. And even more interesting, they do perceive that on-call messaging has a better impact on their business than people who are changing it once a year or less. So they're much more likely, and these are actual statistical differences, they are much more likely to say that on-call messaging is a useful marketing tool, and they are much more likely to say that on-call messaging has actually delivered sales for them. So again, hard to say what causes what, but maybe by changing their message more often, they're actually able to get more benefits from using on-call messaging, which I'm sure is what you guys all believe. So why aren't people updating more often? Again, I'm sure none of this is going to be a surprise to you. But basically, the main reason why people aren't is they feel they're not getting enough support. So this should be something that would be really easy to fix. Again, it's a perception, it may not be reality, but they feel that they need more help from their suppliers to actually update and change messages. So it's not so much a lack of desire as more a lack of perceived ability to be able to do so. You can see some of the quotes here. So I think anything that you can do to make your clients feel more confident about their ability to change the messaging will help them. Because right now they're not feeling very sure that they can do it. And they're kind of resistant to it because of that. The other thing that customers said they would be interested in is having more business support from you guys. They feel there is more potential to how they could use on-call messaging. And I think we saw that earlier on when we talked about the reasons why people buy on-call messaging compared to how they're actually using it today. They know there's more they could be doing, but they just don't really know how to go about it. So I think for all of you who are working with a variety of customers and probably have some really good experience about how to use messaging to actually drive sales or make different things, specific events, that kind of information and knowledge would be really, really gratefully received by your customers. ROI. Obviously, this is one of the holy grails for anybody working in any kind of marketing, is how to actually measure the effectiveness. So this may be something, this may be an opportunity for OHMA as an organization to look at and see if there really is some way beyond kind of the estimates we did here to actually work on calculating how to actually look at the ROI provided by on-call messaging. But again, anything you can do as suppliers to work with your customers on understanding that, and maybe following the process we did here by estimating the average revenue per sales, the number of calls that were called, etc., to get to a number, that would be perceived as very, very valuable by your customers. So some recommendations. And these are all based just on the research findings and things people said or reported. So first of all, in terms of working with your current customers, I think the number one thing you can do is keep on providing the service levels you are. It really is setting you apart. Your customers love your service, they rave about it, You'll see in a little while there are loads of individual call-outs for specific individuals who they feel are really making a difference to their business. And this is probably the single biggest thing you can do to help your customers stay satisfied and continuing to engage with you. Be a business partner. So I'm sure many of you are doing this already, but you want to shift your perception of like, oh, we're a supplier, we're a vendor, to we're a partner with you. This may come down to supplying different solutions as well as on-call messaging, which I know some of you are looking at. But it also means just working with your customer to understand how on-call messaging itself can help drive more value to them. Whether it's using different messages, whether it's working ROI calculations, there's a whole number of ways you can do that. But that will again increase your customer's loyalty and their satisfaction with you and help deliver them more value. Other ways you can add extra value. These were suggestions about making messaging updates more easier. Keep on reminding your customers, send them ticklers. I know some of you are doing this already, but that kind of thing is really, really helpful because I think often people just get wrapped up in the day-to-day. They don't even realize it's been 6-9 months since they last changed their message. So by you being proactive and reaching out to them and saying, hey, have you thought about this? Let me help you do it. That's going to make it easier for them. Providing suggested scripts. We talked about other language options. Anything you can do to make it easier. And again, you might want to ask your customers, what can we do to make this easier? We notice you haven't been changing your message. What can we do to help? New customers, which is what it's all about, isn't it? Because as we showed, if you can get them in, they're likely, hopefully, to stay in and be very satisfied. To me, you have an incredibly powerful resource in that you have so much customer satisfaction. I mean, that 85% is extraordinarily high. So think about different ways that you can use your satisfied customers to help be ambassadors for your business. So just some ideas I threw up here, and I don't know if anyone's tried any of these, but maybe incentives for referrals. So if somebody introduces you to somebody else or gets somebody else to contact you, testimonials from your existing customers, or in fact, from this deck, if that's helpful. Social networking. I mean, this is very much the way the world is working, but you might want to think about how to use things like Facebook or LinkedIn to actually help promote your business through your existing customers. Maybe have a Facebook group, I don't know. But I think there's definitely ways you can use social networking to get your customers to help expand your business alongside you. You're more than welcome to use anything in this research to support your sales pitch if it's helpful. I'm certainly available to answer any questions if you choose to do this around how to use the information appropriately, because sometimes data can be misused, and I'd hate to see you do that. But I am around, so if you are interested in doing that, please reach out, and I can kind of help you work out how you can use it in the best way. And I think both of these approaches can be used to ultimately really educate your prospects. And I know this is what you're doing already. It's very much about education, because people aren't necessarily aware of the benefits. But the benefits are a number of areas. You can show there's a real financial opportunity for those clients who want to build their sales. We can show it improves perception of professionalism. And what business doesn't want to do that and improve their image? And it does lead to improved customer satisfaction with their on-hold experience. And without it, it's just dead time. Or it's music, which is really boring. So I think you can really reach out to new prospects and use some of these findings to actually help grow your business. So, yes, the question was, can I go over the incentive that we offer to fill them out? So the incentive was that we are giving away 2 iPod Touches and 1 iPad. So randomly drawn, completely randomly.
So 3 iPads?
2 iPod Touches and 1 iPad.
Oh, okay.
And then the supplier whose customer won the iPad also gets an iPad.
Do you think because the award, the answers could be a little bit skewed to not favorable because of the prizes?
I don't think so. I mean, doing research, you always have to offer some kind of incentive, because otherwise people aren't going to bother giving their time and attention. And the prize was completely randomly drawn, so it didn't make any difference what answers people gave. They still have the same likelihood of winning the prize. I understand that the perceptions might be different to that.
So the next thing is the return on investment. That's really what we're trying to determine, you know. We got to consider thinking about the next step up.
Yeah. I think that would be enormously powerful. And as I said, we did get some customers who said we have data we can share with the association. So we may be able to do some work around that. But I think the more concrete you can get, we have some estimates here. But obviously, the more concrete you can get, either as an association as a whole or with individual customers, the more powerful that's going to be.
Do you have the capability as a company to accomplish that? A little bit more refined research?
If the data exists, yes. I mean, ultimately, it all depends on the data that's available to work with, and what companies are willing to share, and what companies actually have. I mean, as we talked about earlier, unfortunately, most companies don't have the ability to actually say, these are the number of calls we're putting on hold and how long they're going to hold for. But we can work with estimates. Certainly, customers are willing to share their actual sales result. We can work around that too. So the more accurate information you get, the more we can actually work on calculating what the ROI is. But yeah, it's certainly doable.
Thank you.
How soon can we get these surveys?
This results? I Vince, is there any issue with sending it out soon?
We can make it immediately available if you want to email it out.
That would help.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll send the final version to Vince and then he can distribute it to everybody. Question at the back.
Yeah, when you say people aren't updating often enough, can you define that? What does that mean? Does that mean, as an industry, someone's wrong, someone define that? Does that mean you guys are sending them updates and they're not physically updating it, or they're not asking you for updates?
They're not asking.
What does that mean?
Well, yes, the answer to that question is yes. No, really, in some cases it's because, I mean, we contact them and they say, or they ignore, they're too busy, they wish they could, they don't have time, it's too, they perceive it as too difficult. But I mean, there are people that, I mean, I promise you, if I made it as difficult as picking this glass up, taking a drink of water, putting it back down, they'd say, I don't know, how can I get my hand around the glass? I mean, it's there on the table, I gotta reach out, I gotta grab the glass. I know I'm thirsty, but still. I mean, these people would die in the desert if they had a glass of water in front of them. You can't make it easier. And then there are other people who just, for the other reasons that you said, that, you know, they haven't made contact.
So the work's being done. You're physically, you're creating.
Well, in our company it is. There are companies, I'm sure, that aren't contacting people, but I mean, in our particular company, we are very proactive to make sure that we get in touch with them to make sure, hey, you want to make an update?
And I will say, several people commented that where their suppliers do reach out to them and remind them, they really appreciated that. So I think if it's something you're not doing, it's a great, simple opportunity to do.
Over the last 12 months, we've used Goldmine to slice and dice our database and find out when people don't renew their contracts or don't update, why that is. And we spent a lot of time and effort on this because we thought it was worth it. And essentially, it's not surprising, but we've drawn a direct correlation between the propensity to update your messages and the propensity to renew your contract. And guess what? If you update your messages, you renew your contract. If you don't update your messages, you don't renew your contract. So we found this out 7-8 months ago, something like that. So we completely changed the way we did things. We now incentivize our script writers to make the messages run out of date. 73% last month and about 68 the month before, 73% of the messages we write for our customers run out of date. So we put a message in there which says, this month, the month of May, there's a special offer. To get that special offer, quote on hold 3, and you'll get a discount. Then we can get feedback back from our customers to say how many people quoted on hold 3 and asked for the discount. So we can now start to report how many people are buying things because of the on-hold discount. And also our customers are updating the messages more and more and more because they have to, because it says during May, and you don't want to play a message that says during May in June. It's simple stuff, but it works.
It's fantastic.
We did that for a while because I knew that was a great manipulation technique.
Eventually people caught on to that, and I was like, don't put anything there about dates this time because we don't want to have to replace this thing after 3 months. I mean, people know that's going on.
Why would they not want to? They're paying for updates, so we make sure they get them.
Well, they don't want to because they're lazy. I think
we make them do it.
I don't know why.
We write the message for them. We don't ask them. We just write the message for them.
We have somebody much more important than me.
Happy with what's playing.
More important than I.
Stay here, bitch.
But you write better poems than I do.
Bitch, stay here.
Okay.
Fire.
It's our job, looking to us, to give them relevant content. It is not their job to update, it's our job to give them reasons to update. Not by just saying, hey, you want to update, but here's what my feeling is that we should do branding-wise at this time, and this is why you should update. So you got to do your homework.
And I think we can show them the value. It's not just you should update and here's, what I think you should do, but here's why.
We're the marketing professionals. Let's be marketing professionals, people.
We had our fiscal year ended in March. We had a 92% update on-time rate. Last year we were 90. We haven't fallen below 90 in 5, 6, 7 years. And we do 2 things. Number one, our creatives get paid money based on how well they meet that updating. They have benchmarks. Their benchmark's 90%. If they don't make their benchmark, they miss out on their bonus money. And their bonus money is typically about $3,000 or $4,000 a year. Secondly, they don't go to President's Club if they don't make their up-to-date schedule. So we put some onus on the writers, but much more important, as Mitch was saying, you have to know the client, you have to be able to be their brand ambassador, you have to be providing value, they have to see that this on-hold just isn't let's slap something up there and put it up there. It's all this is important, a very integral part of our marketing piece. And once the writer gets to know the client, they provide much more value. And we also have, I was telling I forget who yesterday, but our writers don't have very many clients. They have about 50 clients. And so they really get to know them very well and provide value.
Can you pass the mic forward? I know there's a gentleman here who's going to speak.
Good job, Jerry. I agree with that. But I'm too lazy to do all that stuff. Now I'm just lazy. Who wants the mic?
I was just going to say, much of the time, the clients are happy with what they're already playing. And if one of their clients, if one of their customers had complimented them on the program that was currently playing, you're not going to get them to change it. It's going to take a long time to get them to change it.
Has anyone had that experience and got any solutions or what have you done? Yeah.
I do have lots of clients. We like what we're running right now. It's just,
I was saying, let's talk into the mic so we can hear.
nice and easy.
No, just a simple comment that, yeah, I'm sure most of us in this room have clients where you've done a fantastic production, maybe it's one of Jerry's award winners. They want to run it, they want to keep running it, and in that case, you either music switch out, keep the content the same, maybe change the voices, at least give it a whole different...
freshen it up.
Yeah, just freshen it up, but the
Listen to
content
how
is the same.
Pete did his audio yesterday, the first speaker.
Say that again?
How Pete did his audio yesterday, the first speaker
Yeah.
that we had. And he just played on the same thing, but he made it a little fresher, a little...
Sure.
Yeah.
Same intent, same data, same basic numbers, just with a different spin.
Well, one other point is that on one of your previous slides, you mentioned that the perception of the company was the most important to them, right?
Yeah.
I don't recall exactly how you phrased it, or they phrased it in the survey, but so once you perhaps produce a really dazzling on-hold recording, it's giving the company this perception of a great value. That was ahead of sales.
Yeah.
And remarkably ahead of keeping callers on hold, as I recall, like quite a bit, right?
Yes.
So perhaps in this room we're focused on maybe the number of updates and focused on sales, and maybe the clients ultimately are like, well, sounds great, company sounds great, right? Is there?
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Again, I mean, one aspect I might think of is maybe it's an opportunity, because maybe they don't realize how much beneficial it could be for them, actually. That.
There's one more thing that I might throw out, because I don't hear this very often, but with our clients, we do a caller profile when we sell them, and then when they do their program reviews, we redo that caller profile. And what we're doing is we're trying to figure out how often do people call. So if they have a big client that calls once a week, and he's put on hold for a minute each time, so that means he's on hold 52 minutes a year. And if you're on hold, production's only 4 minutes. In a year's time, he's going to hear that 12 times. So we do this with the client, and we let them realize that you don't want your callers hearing the same production more than 2-3 times. And so what happens is the client realizes that they are not having to make a change for the sake of the content and the marketing message. They have to make a change so that their callers don't get frustrated with it. And so we have a lot of clients who know they have to change, and it's like nothing's changed, everything's the same, we have no new message, but they realize they have to change it up for their callers. And some of our callers, as you guys know, call 3-4 times a day. They're put on hold every time. And not changing the message makes the on hold completely, not only worthless, but it's serving the exact opposite benefit of, instead of enhancing your image, it's blowing up your image because they're hearing the same crap every day. And then your clients start realizing, this is crap, but I got to put it up, and then they don't start updating. So that's another thing, is really look at the caller profile and get the client to buy into that.
I think that's a great idea.
And that's an excellent point, because we tend...
Thank you, Justin.
We tend to do that when we first sell the client, don't we? We do the profile, we do the questionnaire. But Jerry's right, how often are we doing that throughout the cycle of servicing our customer base? Good question. And I like the fact that Nick is incentivizing people on the production side to get clients to update, which motivates them to be more creative.
So the chair.
Do you have a comment up front? Anything like keeping you busy running back and forth?
Money talks, doesn't it?
We had a
Battery died?
Turn it off. We lost the battery.
You talking, I'll repeat it.
We had a situation probably about 8-9 years ago where everyone hear me?
I'll repeat it after.
We had a situation about 8-9 years ago with a hotel client who decided they weren't going to renew the contract. And basically, I was talking to the general manager and said, why are you not renewing? And he said, well, you're not making us any money. And I said, well, that was never an objective.
Primarily an objective, because this is a new hotel, and when that hotel opened, they only wanted to change their recordings 3 times a year, and the reason for changing 3 times a year was because they just wanted to promote the location of the hotel and the facilities in general, and just use it as general broad information. But what actually happened with this client was he wanted to make money from on hold. So I asked him, what makes you money? And he said, well, we've got food and beverage outlets, we've got weddings, we have conferences, we have conventions, and these are all these different outlets within the property. And I said, well, how often do they have something changing in each area? And he said, well, every month we've got a different promotion. So I said, look, well, you don't need to be changing your recording 3 times a year, but you need to be changing it every month. Because if the areas that make you money and you want to be making money from this change on a monthly basis, you need to change your recordings monthly. It's a no-brainer, isn't it? But what we actually do with all of our clients is we actually nail them down to a strategy. Up front, so throughout this agreement, we actually review with them every quarter, what are your objectives for using this? And this way we can make sure that the logic and the reason for you changing the recordings stays aligned with their business strategy. And that client, they renewed 12 recordings a year, signed a 4-year contract. After that, they carry on changing 12 times a year. So what's really crucial to all of our clients is firstly strategy, not just change 4 times a year because everyone else does, but actually getting them to define and put their name to it, what they want to achieve, and then making sure that we review this with them every quarter. So I have account managers, they've got KPIs to go and meet their clients every quarter. And that's something we found has really worked well.
And that's a great example of being a real business partner, working on the strategy rather than just giving them an afterthought solution. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay, so just going to wrap this up with just a few more things. These were just some comments I really loved as I was kind of going through, pulling out all the answers from this research. There's a lot of passion out there. I mean, who would have thought that on-call messaging would get people to talk like this? I mean, I was really surprised. It is exciting stuff, but yeah, I mean, we've got people who are not just very satisfied with what they're getting from on-call messaging, but they are passionate about it. I mean, these capitals are theirs. I don't think on-call rocks, no buyer's remorse ever. These guys love what you're doing.
All right, how many of you guys took this survey and put these comments in?
So,
how many of us in this room?
I mean, it is worth remembering that, this isn't just a bread and butter marketing tool. The people who are using this properly, who are seeing the value of it, are really, really excited about what it's doing for their business. Another thing I was very impressed by is, in the course of all the comments that people filled in and provided, we got a lot of individual mentions for specific names. So, I just want to applaud everyone whose name is up here, because you guys obviously made such an impression on your customers.
Why would my clients say that you're great?
So, I think, a wide range of people acknowledge, but these are people who, respondents, I didn't say to them, is there anyone you particularly want to acknowledge? This was just in the course of their comments on what they think about their service. And they acknowledge these individuals and these teams. So, kudos to everybody who got a shout out there. Okay, so finally, this brings us on to who the winners are. And as I said, this was done entirely randomly. I can provide you with how it was done if there are any questions about it. What I'm going to do is show the members who had winning respondents, and then through Vince, or myself, you can get the actual names of the winners. Okay? So the iPod Touch, the first one goes to Per Sounds customer. The second one goes to an America on hold. And the big prize, the iPad 3, 1-800. So not only is your customer who got picked up and get an iPad 3, but you also get one.
You have to pay the VAT.
I'm happy to take any other questions, but I hope you found this informative.
Thank you, Arabella. I think let's have another hand. That was really great.